Hi, come in. Welcome to Fashion Neurosis, Kim Gordon.
Thanks.
Can I ask you, why did you choose what you're wearing today?
Well, it was partly because it's hot out, but I've been wearing these silk pants for most of the tour, alternating them with these flared Adidas pants. And I don't know, just something comfortable that's, I kind of actually recently refound this red necklace. It's like an ancient Agnes B necklace. So I just, because I'm wearing all black, I just thought I would put it on and accessorize a bit.
It's quite Marie Antoinette, actually, in a kind of... I mean, I've no idea if she wore it, but I imagine someone with the blonde hair would wear this kind of significant colour around her neck.
Oh. As you get older, you become less visible, so I thought, oh, why not wear a red necklace?
It's a really good point, actually, because there's this whole thing about being less visible, but there's so much to say and do as we get older. And especially if we can wear clothes, it's like, got to wear them, you know, be a bit more adventurous. Well, if you're a bit inclined to hiding.
Yeah.
You've described yourself as shy and even introverted, yet you have a way of drawing attention to yourself. I've always been quite fascinated by how you dress and the sort of subtlety of your style, and especially your short skirts, and you've got really amazing legs.
Oh, thank you.
You really do. And I wondered what the first pieces that you chose, like as you were sort of establishing your sense of identity when you were a child, what were the first pieces of clothing that you adopted as your identity?
My mother, you know, she grew up in the Depression, and so she would buy my clothes at thrift stores or make clothes for me. But then when I was 12, we lived in Hong Kong, and it was still a British colony then. And there was one store that had all these sort of modish clothes, and I saved up all my money and I bought a pair of these red corduroy hip hugger bell bottoms, and that was the first sort of cool thing I ever bought. And then it wasn't really for a long time till when I was in Sonic Youth, that I started wearing shorts. Like I had a pair of silver leather shorts that I guess I bought during like the Goo era. Or we did this kind of goofy photo shoot for the cover where basically I really sort of, for me, glammed it up, because before that it was more just sort of struggling with clothes and things like that, and being kind of poor also. But it was always kind of like a challenge to sort of balance out like something cool and something that's maybe more femme, and kind of shorts on stage seemed to, I don't know, I just got more energy from showing my legs, really.
Because there's a way that you look on stage. Like I was watching an old video of you in a punk movie where you're wearing this really short stripy dress, and you're just moving around, but there's something about your legs being sort of almost out of sight that they can just, you seem really unself-conscious, and I'm always intrigued by that, because you're a shy person, but it's not like you're showing yourself, you're just being agile. And wondered how that happened.
I don't know. I mean, I used to take modern dance, Martha Graham, when I was a teenager, and then some kind of rigorous ballet, and playing music felt like just moving around on stage, and it was just very physical to me, which I think I was kind of sporty when I was a kid and good at things like that. So I don't know. So the dress, I like to always contrast a dress with like playing dissonant music, and that dress, it seemed like the perfect dress because it wasn't like too femmy or anything. And it just got shorter and shorter throughout the tour because I would sweat so much. And then I just started shrinking.
It's quite good, really, because it sort of deals with any conscious, like, I'm going to have this. It just makes the look for you, and you're in it, and then
Yeah.
you can be slightly more visible.
Yeah. I mean, I always liked that, like Keith seemed to, like, the Stones early on seemed to wear the same thing all the time. Or, like, maybe it's just because there were drugs involved. They were sort of like too lazy to change. But it wasn't like, I don't know, it was sort of like embedded into like their personalities in a way. And I don't know, it just seemed like this kind of effortlessness in terms of, I don't know, what they wore on stage or something. And I think that Anita Pallenberg obviously had a lot to do with that.
Yeah, she did have a huge influence. She was a friend of mine, and she had a big influence on me too. And
Have you seen the documentary?
yeah,
I really want to see that.
it's great. It's fantastic. It's really, really good. In fact, she's one of those people, of which you are too, when I feel stuck and I want some like fire about like a direction to make things for, or I want a mood to kind of immerse myself in. I think of her. She was quite strict as well. And think of you, because you both have this elegance as well as this kind of...
Well, that's so funny because she
roll.
was a big role model for me at one
Really?
point.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really that bold, but yeah, I think it's interesting adding small details to what you wear.
Yeah, it gives things more association, doesn't it? And that's, I think, why people are obsessed with how you look, because your look relates to all sorts of thoughts and ideas, and that's very stimulating for an admirer.
Yeah. It's funny because honestly, like, I really always struggled with what I wore on stage or just day to day. Or like when I first moved to New York, everyone looked so chic because they wore black all the time. And I kind of felt pretty out of it. But when I did that book for Rizzoli, which is all pictures, it was like, oh my God, it's just a collection of bad outfits. That's how I thought it was going to be. And then actually when I look through it, it is kind of interesting because everything now looks so kind of polished in a way or generic or something.
Yeah, I think that's you, that you bring that to the outfit, this sort of polish. And you probably, being a very modest person, but you do bring that, and that's what's interesting, because it's there's not a lot, you don't laden it on. It's all quite subtle, but it's very it's so specific as well. It's so noticeable, and it goes through. It's sort of affecting.
Well, I've gotten better. I know more what works. And
Yeah.
kind of.
Did you have a code or a way of dressing when you were growing up? Did you want to stand out or blend in?
When I was in elementary school, I went to a school that was like an experimental lab school, and girls could wear anything they wanted, whereas in public schools, they had to wear dresses all the time. And I was kind of a tomboy, if I can use that term now. But, I wore like jeans and... No, my mother had no idea how much new clothes cost. And so, and then I sort of dressed kind of hippie-ish. But I just really never felt like... When I bought those red corduroy bell-bottoms, that somehow, like, it was equated with music that I was into. And so that really influenced me, and in the sense of, like, what was going on in England. And, it was so far away. But then I lived in LA, which seems so like mod. You know, it's more like, you know, more hippie. And I was confused, like, how can people be into David Bowie and live in LA or something? Because it's just all about being casual and, you know, wearing T-shirts. It's so dictated by the weather. And so, you know, Hollywood is such a pocket or bubble of LA.
Yeah, how were they into David Bowie? And I mean, I'm shocked even now when I go to LA and how dressed down people are. It's like
Yeah,
there are no clothes. But I mean, I know everything that is costs a fortune,
totally.
those cashmere rags. But
Yeah. It's kind of interesting how that way of dressing has also become such an export.
yeah,
You know, it's like now all over. And, you know, skatewear, streetwear. Like even in London, like I think of it as a place where people dress more formally, but I go out on the street and actually that's not really true.
but somehow people, the sportswear and stuff, it's much more overt than, you know, James Purse kind of open neck t-shirts and sort of mild jeans and stuff. Everything is very anonymous, whereas at least what you're describing is skatewear is kind of exciting and it has an energy.
Right. Yeah, I guess at some point it really influenced the fashion world. And
I had a similar sort of, we had very little money growing up too, and it made one or two things seem completely amazing, like the chords you were describing, and then the idea of having lots of things was just like a fantasy. And sometimes I think that's sort of stays a bit, well, I hope it doesn't because I'm in the fashion business. I need people to want more.
I think it's kind of fashion is sort of all about making people desire things and you do have to kind of want to desire. I mean, some people, I do sometimes shop out of anxiety, but since this is a fashion neurosis moment, but I think that you also have to really, yeah, like want it or there's desire involved. And that's what makes it fun.
When you have your anxiety moment, is there something in particular that you try and buy as a sort of anesthetic?
It's more like, oh, let me go back online and look at those jeans, all these different style of jeans or something. Or, you know, it's just like buying something that I probably don't need.
Can I ask you something about your hair? I know you're a natural blonde, but you have this very particular kind of sheet of blonde hair. And whenever I see you on stage or in photographs, it's almost like someone has photographed you in color and translated into black and white, like those Andy Warhol sort of silver screen things. And I wondered if you'd seen something or based it on anything.
Well, okay, I'm not a natural blonde anymore. But when I was a natural blonde, it was always dark underneath. I had dark roots, dark eyebrows. Recently, actually lightened it up a bit, but you know, instead of letting it go gray, I was gonna go more blonde because it does look better in pictures or on stage.
It looks really good.
Oh,
Have you ever
thanks.
tried another color?
I once dyed it black, and then I also used to put Medic Panic colors.
What are they?
Like I think it was like magenta at one time, which I really liked, and then red.
You're more daring than me. I've never dyed my hair, but it's partly because when I used to sit for my dad, which I did a lot, I just knew he'd freak out if that ever happened.
Oh
So
yeah.
I was going to go blonde once, and then he said, "Do you want to start a painting?" And that was the end of that.
Wow. Yeah, Coco has never colored her hair, my daughter.
Yeah.
And it's like it is turning darker as she gets older, but it's this really unusual, you know, color, dark blonde now. You know, it gets lighter in the summer, but like people really try and achieve that color. And I was glad as a teenager, when her friends were all doing that, she didn't do that.
How did your parents dress? You talked about your mother making clothes and things, and I wondered whether you were influenced by what was their look?
Well, my mom, she would shop at thrift stores and then tailor she wore like blazers and stuff like that. But when she was making clothes and occasionally she would have like a showing in the house, she collaborated with this man who made these beautiful woodcut fabrics on chiffon and velvet, and then she would make caftans and these dresses called abbas, which were really simple, but the fabric was really beautiful, actually. And I had some of those things, but mostly she was, kind of unconventional.
In what way?
Well, my parents weren't materialistic. I mean, they were, maybe because they did grow up in the Depression, but they were middle class academics, and they just never really bought into consumer culture. And I don't know, maybe because she grew up sewing and making her own clothes, they were kind of like, I always thought they were a little odd, some of the clothes. Like, they were dark, a lot of them, like weird kind of dark patterns sometimes for herself. But as she got older, she would buy things from the Beverly Hills thrift store and, loafers, and she became dressed more conventionally. I guess I didn't realize, I was like, why is she still so obsessed with the way she dresses and looks? And now that I'm older and I realize, boy, I was really unempathetic. Or I was just pretty clueless. She has all these shoes in her closet, but she only wears these or something, And it's like, I do the same thing.
But it sounds like she was staging something almost like fashion shows rather than just making clothes. I mean, it was a performative thing.
Yeah, I think partly she grew up thinking her sisters were more beautiful than her or something. I don't know. She never really felt really seen, I think, as how beautiful she was or could be, when she dressed up. And so I think it was like a preoccupation.
It's a really good function of clothes, actually, to have, to use clothes for that feeling of being too shy to show yourself or just lack of confidence. And
yeah.
They're like a soldier's uniform. If you have a good outfit. I remember going to this therapist who asked me if I had a lot of good clothes in my wardrobe. So I was describing sort of crisis of confidence. And I said no. And she said, well, you really should, because that is your tool for feeling better. It's a means to an end. And I took her advice, and I have loads of clothes. And I remember when my mood is going down that I can sort of adjust it up to a point, that an outfit is a kind of useful strategy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I also like the idea that you're maybe curating a little bit of the environment that you go into.
Yeah. How so? Can you think of an instance?
I don't know. It just kind of it's like the outer layer, you're just projecting some outer layer of yourself, I suppose. But you kind of add aesthetically to the environment in a way, just visually.
In your memoir, Girl in a Band, you talk about your brother, Keller, and how brilliantly articulate he was. And you also say how sadistic, manipulative and controlling he was, and that he was then diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic. But you also said that he had the most profound effect on you, sort of more than anything in your life. And I wondered what that was.
I mean, I was definitely influenced by books he was reading, whether it was Nietzsche or, I don't know, Sartre or something. But in kind of always feeling like the underdog in a way, and just sort of maybe made me a little bit of an overachiever, or just always, he was I don't know, just kind of searching for like, well, what am I good at? I don't know. I mean, I knew I was always artistic and good with my hands, but it was strange because when I moved to New York, I started writing. I never really thought that I was a good writer, but to me, it was always about ideas. And if the ideas were good, then the writing could be good. And it was just strange. Like, it's kind of how when you move away from your family, you have a certain dynamic in the family, and you move away, you can sort of rediscover or reinvent yourself or something like that. And I guess that was a big part of it. Like, oh, I guess I can write, but I'm not like good with, I'm not flowery or like good with words in a way.
I was interested because I could imagine that kind of level of being held to account by someone with a very critical mind, and how I wondered if that had, well, in fact, you just described how it had made you sort of examine yourself and like work harder at what you may have to offer.
Yeah, and also, I mean, it made me into probably a giant people pleaser. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, fuck it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
My dad was a bit like that, because even though he didn't pay negative attention to me, he was one of the most articulate people. Even though English was his second language, he had this way with words that was so devastating that it was fascinating, and how he would sort of single things out. I mean, I didn't grow up with him, but it made me very interested in the power of words and how I could damn someone. This was when I was at school and trying to feel powerful, but then, how language is everything, and I still believe in that very much. In your book, you also talked about no-wave music and how you were drawn to that and the dissonance, and I think I could sort of picture you like in the eye of the storm, and I wondered if that influenced like how you decide to present yourself in this kind of sort of chaotic noise, and there you are, this kind of beam of light in the middle of it.
I mean, to me, it just seemed like really free, just really free music. Like, it kind of had the attitude of punk, but it was, in a certain way, more interesting because it wasn't just 3-chord rock. I mean, there were bands like the Raincoats or the Slits who were not conventional in that way. And there's a certain amount of not knowing how to play an instrument that gives you an awful lot of freedom. And I just felt like, oh, I can do this. It was a little bit of escaping from the art world at the same time, which was a bit like a pressure cooker.
Yeah, I was intrigued by some of the things you talked about in your book. Like, you talked a lot about that song Going Back to Cali by LL Cool J. And then you talked about the video. And I wasn't that familiar with LL Cool J. And so I listened to the song, I watched the video, and then I did a shoot and used some of the backdrop just as like a photocopy in the background. And then I made a jumper for you, even though I'd never met you. And I was reading something you'd said, and you said, I don't know what you said, but I just thought this, I wanna, and I put that on the jumper. It was
that's cool.
Cashmere with navy with shorts.
Do you still have that?
I think I have it somewhere. In fact, maybe I'll make another one and give it to you. And I like to read about musicians and who they're interested in, and I got so much from what you were interested in. And you just seem so definite, and I was wondering if that's something that you nurture on purpose.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I liked how minimalistic the music was, and Rick Rubin produced that record, and then the video I just thought was so funny. Actually, he probably didn't produce Going Back to Cali, but his first record called Radio, his first album, he did. But and it was just so funny, like just, yeah, I just really liked the humor of it and the way it was shot and making fun of like California white girls. I don't know.
I wanted to ask you, if you fancy someone and you don't like what they're wearing, does that kill your attraction to them?
Possibly. It depends on what that item is.
Is there anything that springs to mind?
Oh, God. I don't know. Maybe a baseball cap on sideways. And maybe a mullet. I'm sorry.
A mullet?
I never really got used to that.
It is very self-conscious, actually, a mullet, isn't it? I think when people are too self-conscious, there's an embarrassment for them that is hard to overcome and then, be attracted to them. Yeah,
Probably
sometimes
true.
I sort of override that. I feel so bad for them that I fall in love with them. I did that one.
Or just like somebody who's like too fashioned out, I think, I don't know, it's different now, but there was a time when, men who were straight, who were like too preoccupied with fashion or something. Or just like, I don't know, just a plain button down can be sexy to me.
Arthur Miller style. A lot of people project their fantasy onto you, and in reverse, who do you think dresses in a cool way at the moment? Do you have any fashion icons?
Well, I always go back to Chloe Sevigny. To me, she's truly a fashion icon. And no, I like that she kind of always plays to the street and, just kind of has fun. And she also has great legs too. But
She does. She just makes clothes look good. It's her all the time, isn't it?
and she takes a lot of risks and, yeah.
And if you're feeling low, are there certain clothes that make you feel better?
It's more about having a good hair day, actually.
You do have this great kind of floppy hair that is so enviable. So how do you keep it like that?
It's not good. I mean, honestly, it's just it's a constant thing. I mean, second day hair is just always best. But I'm really bad at blow drying it. I've just sort of given up. Yeah, there's only one person who really blows out my hair the way I like it. Other people don't understand bend. Just put a little bend in it. And it comes out too like fluffy.
It's amazing how of all the hairdressers you've come across, there's only one person that sort of makes your hair yours.
Yeah, I mean, I've had other people on shoots that are fine, but like just walking into like a salon, if I feel like getting a blowout that will last, or something. So I'm lazy, so I don't have to wash my hair for a few days, and that's difficult.
And when you get dressed, where do you start with an outfit, if you have that?
Oh, I don't know. Pants.
Yeah?
Probably.
Not a shoe or any
Definitely not a shoe.
Or a sock?
I almost never wear socks, actually.
What are you wearing on stage on this tour?
So I'm mostly wearing just these Celine satin boxer shorts and this black satin shirt that has like a little sort of bow thing around it, and these Isabel Marant boots. It's good, like sort of low key.
But black rather than, you had a lot of white last time.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I hope it's not boring, but.
But on stage, even if you're wearing different clothes, you seem to have this incredible look. And when I first met you and you came to my studio and tried some things on, and I gave you this white silk Manelli shirt with a black tie, and then I saw you wearing it, and that was so thrilling and exciting. I felt like I got into your psyche by providing you with this
Yeah.
thing.
Honestly, I love that blouse, and I would still be wearing it. But I felt like I had to change things up a little, but it's definitely, that was my favorite look on stage.
And do you find as you get older, your relationship to your body and how you dress it changes?
Yeah, I guess I mean, I always have to I always ask myself, is this, am I dressing too young, or is this is this age appropriate? And it's difficult. I mean, I think if you're on stage, you can get away with wearing things that I probably wouldn't wear. Like I don't go around wearing shorts. But I also what Chloe kind of reminds me sometimes, isn't it better to be street and eccentric, and keep that, which is part of your personality as you get older or something.
It's true. Do you find that you're less critical of yourself as you get older? I mean, I find that about myself. I was so locked down and judgmental. Now I'm like, go for it,
In some ways, it fluctuates wildly.
And in your hit song, Bye Bye, you make a list that's like a poem. And you name check 3 designers, and one of them's me. And I wondered how I managed to get onto the list of all the amazing clothes you have.
Well, it really was like a packing list. So I was wearing your shirt on tour, or I had worn it, So, yeah. And then I don't know why I put Ekauslada. I think I liked the way it sounded. And yeah, YSL. I don't know. I have a couple things that were given to me. Yeah, I just, something, it's a list that's partly real, partly not real. So
It's incredible, that
the real
list.
list would be much longer.
But somehow the things that you've included is like a philosophy almost, what you've described. And then my friend Joseph said it reminded him of Joan Didion's packing list.
Oh yeah, it's funny. I had forgotten about her packing list, and then I was listening to on Audible this memoir of hers, which I highly recommend. It's really well read. The narration is good, and there's a lot of quotes from her work in it, and yeah, there's a part that talks about the packing list, and I thought that was awesome. She is kind of a style icon, I guess. Joan Didion.
Yeah. She is magnificent, isn't she?
Yeah.
She's just so great. I must listen to that memoir. It's written by someone else. It's a biography.
But it has a lot of her writing in it.
Yeah, I think she has a similar thing to you in that she has this innate elegance, this kind of freedom, and also something of the soldier and of, I've got this, I'm going to do that, and no one will stand between me and my idea. But it's sort of gentle and steely at the same time, which I always admire.
Well, that's a huge compliment.
Well, thank you so much for being on Fashion Neurosis, Kim. It was lovely to have you.
Thanks for inviting me to your couch.